Hi, Russell Sturgess here again. It's been a while since I've done a personal blog and nice to be back. We've just had Anzac weekend here in Australia where we commemorate it's a bit like Veterans Day, where we commemorate the soldiers who have been involved in the various wars that Australia's participated in. Primarily as a nation, it sort of started around the Boer War. And then since then, so basically from the 1900s, early 1900s right through First World War, Second World War, and of course the Anzacs, the Australian New Zealand forces, became quite famous for their involvement in Turkey and then France during World War I and of course on to World War II. The reason that I want to talk about this is that over the weekend I had a thought about the role of women in war, in particular mothers, and I was impressed with the whole idea that probably the people most not recognised for their contribution is the mothers who sacrifice their sons and daughters who are killed in war or who are maimed or physically or mentally injured. And the price that they've had to pay as the bearers of life with the loss or the injury to their children. And I thought that of all the people that should be given some place for recognition, and I know we have Mother's Day, but when it comes to war, it's predominantly a situation where we have a group of men making a decision that's going to cost the lives of young men and women, primarily young men, who are the sons of mothers who have carried them in their womb, who have fed them at their breasts, who have raised them as boys and girls, and have basically given years of dedication to these young people getting to this point in their adulthood where they go off to war and fight. And I was thinking about the whole notion, particularly in light of some other news that came to the press during the weekend, and it was the story of a man here who bashed his wife with a cricket bat, bashed her to death. And on top of that, some advertisements that were being run about violence and stopping the violence that men perpetrate towards women. And the whole nature or feature of that particular advertisement that the government was running was the whole idea that violence for women comes out of disrespect. And I couldn't help but think of the irony between the fact that when we send men to war, that in some form it's really a form of disrespect. It's disrespect to womanhood and in particular motherhood. The fact that these women have given birth to, nurtured and grown these young men and of course these days these young women. Not to mention all of the civilian loss in war, all of the children and the other people who aren't soldiers who die, who once again have emanated from the womb, have emanated from this sacred yoni, as it's referred to. But you see, we don't see it as that. We see it as a vessel for cannon fodder, essentially, and particularly when we see how much stupidity has resulted in death in war. Respect for women and respect for mothers would be about seeing respect for their offspring, respect for life. And I think that we would struggle to be able to justify promoting this whole notion of teaching respect, particularly to young people, about women when, as a society, we give validation to war, and that it's okay that there's a loss of life for the sake of war. In some of my research when I was writing Metanoia, I came across references to the fact that in the American Indian tribes, the decision to go to battle was basically given to grandmothers, and the grandmothers would advise the chief, with the idea being that they understood the sacredness of life, and their wisdom was sufficient to decide whether giving up lives for this cause was valid or not. I wonder if in this day and age, if women were given the decision about wars, whether we'd have as many wars as we do. So in the article that I've written in the blog, it goes a step further, and I talk about this whole notion that as we begin to give reverence to the role that women have as mothers, then there's a greater capacity for the genitalia of a woman not to be viewed in pornographic terms, but to be seen as a sacred yoni, a sacred vessel, a place where the sacredness of the opportunity for life exists. Of course, what goes with that is of course all of the functions of a woman's uterus that makes it possible for her to have children, which leads to another whole idea that, and some time ago a book was written about the red tent, and it was this idea that in some Arab states there was a place where women could go during their menses where they would be looked after and nurtured by other women. Can you imagine in this day and age if in our cities we had red tents, so as to speak, places where women could go to be nurtured by other women as they're going through their periods, as they're dealing with their menses, where it would be a socially acceptable thing to honour women in that way? I know it's probably a far stretch, but I think all of these ideas, the fact that mothers would be walking in Anzac Parade, that there would be acknowledgement for the sacrifice of mothers, and allowing them to be actively involved in decision making about war, to have red tents, all of these things would be ways of honouring what is intrinsically core at who most women are. Now, not every woman chooses to be a mother, but it's a function and it's a capability that exists within most women. Anyway, these are the thoughts that I've had this week. I hope you find it of interest, and please stay in tune for future blogs, as every couple of weeks we bring out a new blog with different issues and different things that are current. Anyway, take care. Speak to you again soon. Bye.